Amanda and Greg Winters were the couple everyone envied, till one of them ended up dead, and the other had no idea their every move had been secretly recorded. In the peaceful town of Franklin Heights, Amanda and Greg Winters were the embodiment of a perfect life. With their beautiful home tucked away on a quiet street, a well-kept lawn, and matching SUVs in the driveway, it seemed nothing could ever go wrong for the Winters. Greg, a seasoned software engineer, worked remotely for a major tech firm, while Amanda ran a successful personal training business from a studio downtown. Their lives appeared calm, predictable, and enviable. To the outside world, everything about them sparkled with happiness. On social media, they shared anniversary posts, vacation photos from exotic destinations, and weekly snapshots of their weekend brunches. Amanda, always impeccably dressed, had a radiant smile that charmed everyone. Greg was quieter, more reserved, but clearly doted on his wife. Friends described them as inseparable. They were the couple everyone wanted to be. But the truth was that Greg had begun to notice changes, small, quiet shifts in their relationship that others wouldn't have seen. Amanda had started staying out late, saying her training clients needed extra sessions. Her texts became short, and her kisses more mechanical. Greg, analytical by nature, didn't confront her at first. He observed. He kept track of her schedule. He started checking phone bills and monitoring online activity. What he found didn't confirm an affair, but it did spark concern. There were long gaps of unexplained time, and Amanda seemed to be withdrawing emotionally. Greg's anxiety grew. He started waking up in the middle of the night, plagued by a sense of unease. At work, he struggled to concentrate. His health began to decline from the stress, and he lost interest in the hobbies he once enjoyed. Still, he kept his suspicions to himself, hoping he was just being paranoid. Meanwhile, Amanda continued living life as if nothing was wrong. She maintained her social presence, greeted neighbors cheerfully, and talked often about wanting to start a family. But behind closed doors, her demeanor shifted. She was colder, more distant. She snapped at Greg over small things and frequently accused him of being controlling. Greg knew something was off, but he didn't know how deep the deception went. Eventually, he decided to install a new home security system. His explanation to Amanda was that it would help with package thefts in the neighborhood. She didn't question it, or if she did, she didn't let on. What she didn't know was that Greg opted for a high-end system with hidden cameras placed in key areas of the house, discrete devices that recorded both video and audio. He set the footage to automatically back up to a secure cloud account, one only he could access. Greg didn't know what he was looking for yet. He just wanted to feel safe again. What he couldn't have known was that this quiet, desperate decision would one day speak louder than any scream. And it would be the very thing that uncovered a darkness far worse than he could have imagined. Amanda's transformation didn't happen overnight. It began with small acts of detachment, missed dinner plans, unanswered texts, cold silences where warmth used to live. At first it seemed like stress. She'd taken on more clients at her fitness studio, and business was booming. She claimed she was exhausted, spread thin. Greg believed her, wanting to support her career. But over time, the distance between them grew into a quiet chasm. Amanda found herself drawn to a new client, a man named Troy, who had recently moved to Franklin Heights. He was charming, muscular, and flirtatious in a way that reignited something Amanda hadn't felt in years. Their training sessions grew longer, more intimate. The lines between professional and personal blurred quickly. Amanda, once content with her stable life, began to feel caged by it. She started to imagine a different future, one with money, freedom, and passion. But Greg was in the way. That's when her thoughts shifted from discontent to something darker. Amanda started researching life insurance policies. She realized Greg's company had provided him with a sizable plan, and he had recently increased it, thinking it was a responsible move for their future. Amanda, seeing only dollar signs, saw an opportunity. The policy was ironclad, and she was the sole beneficiary. A natural death would lead to a payout of $2 million. Enough to start over, enough to disappear. She began searching for methods of undetectable poisoning. Her fitness background helped her understand supplements and how certain substances could affect the body. She focused on digitalis, a compound found in foxglove plants. In small amounts, it could mimic a heart attack. In large amounts, it could kill. Best of all, it was difficult to trace in early toxicology screenings without suspicion. Amanda planned carefully. She ordered small quantities of crushed plant powder from different vendors, using aliases and rerouting packages through her gym. She mixed it into protein powders, testing the taste and consistency. She tracked Greg's schedule meticulously, learning when he was alone, when he ate, and what his routines were. She began testing her concoctions on Greg in tiny doses to see how his body responded. When he started complaining of dizziness and fatigue, she showed concern just enough to seem caring, but not enough to draw suspicion. Greg, unaware of the danger he was in, began to feel like something was seriously wrong. Saw doctors, but nothing concrete showed up. Blood pressure slightly high, occasional arrhythmia, but nothing life-threatening. Amanda took this as confirmation that her plan would work. She chose the date carefully, a stormy Thursday evening when most people stayed indoors and the streets would be quiet, the perfect night for an accident. She prepared his dinner, blending the final dose into his post-workout smoothie. She practiced her lines in her head, rehearsing panic and grief. She would call 911 at the right time, cry when the paramedics arrived, and play the heartbroken widow flawlessly. In her mind, everything was under control. She had thought of every detail, every variable. What she didn't know was that the very walls around her were watching, and they would remember everything she had tried to erase. The night Amanda had planned arrived with a cold wind and steady rain. The streets of Franklin Heights were nearly empty, and the soft rumble of thunder echoed in the distance. Inside their warm home, Greg followed his routine, unaware of what awaited him. He had finished his workout and settled into the kitchen, where Amanda handed him a protein shake with a soft smile. He thanked her, took a few sips, and continued scrolling through his phone, unaware that each swallow brought him closer to death. Amanda kept her movements calm and purposeful. She tidied the counter, folded a dish towel, and checked the time. She knew the effects wouldn't take long. Greg began to feel dizzy within minutes, gripping the edge of the counter for support. His breathing became uneven. He stumbled backward, knocking over a glass that shattered on the tile floor. Amanda didn't flinch. She stood across the kitchen, watching him with quiet calculation. Greg collapsed with a thud, his body twitching briefly before going still. The silence in the room was broken only by the distant thunder and the humming refrigerator. Amanda waited. She gave it another minute. Then carefully, she stepped forward and examined the scene. Her voice, when she finally picked up her phone, was laced with panic. She dialed 911, her words a frantic blend of concern and fear. She claimed her husband had collapsed suddenly, possibly a heart attack. Emergency services arrived quickly, their boots echoing on the wet porch as they entered. Amanda led them to the kitchen, tears welling in her eyes. She clutched a blanket around her shoulders, shaking as they checked Greg's vitals. There was nothing they could do. He was pronounced dead shortly after being moved into the ambulance. At the hospital, the initial diagnosis matched Amanda's story: cardiac arrest, sudden and unexpected. Doctors noted some irregularities, but nothing screamed foul play. Amanda's performance was flawless. She sobbed, hugged relatives, and spoke of how sudden it all was. She said he had seemed tired lately, but nothing serious. Everyone believed her. Over the next week, Amanda shifted smoothly into the role of grieving widow. She organized a tasteful memorial service, posted a heartfelt tribute online, and thanked friends and family for their support. Greg's coworkers and neighbors offered condolences, unsuspecting that the woman in black had orchestrated the whole thing. The police conducted a routine investigation standard for sudden deaths at home. They asked Amanda a few questions, which she answered with grace and composure. Her alibi was solid, and the cause of death seemed natural. She even offered to provide Greg's recent medical history to help with the insurance process. Behind her calm expression, Amanda felt victorious. The hardest part was over. Soon, she would receive the payout and start her new life. She imagined herself on a beach somewhere, far from Franklin Heights, far from questions. She believed her plan had worked perfectly. What Amanda failed to notice was a small blinking light in the corner of the kitchen. A light that had been recording her every move, every step, every fatal decision. Just days before Amanda was scheduled to receive the $2 million life insurance payout, a quiet digital signal was triggered. It came from the home security system Greg had installed months earlier, specifically a feature he'd configured himself. The system was designed to send a silent alert if no login activity occurred for 5 consecutive days. That alert, flagged as suspicious by the security company's internal protocol, prompted a routine check. The technician assigned to review Greg's account noticed something odd. All camera footage from the house had continued backing up to the cloud, even after Greg's death. Dozens of clips, some flagged automatically by the system's motion sensors, had been stored but never reviewed. The company, following legal procedures, contacted local authorities and turned over the footage in accordance with Greg's account preferences. What began as a technicality suddenly took a serious turn. Detectives from the Franklin Heights Police Department began combing through the videos. What they found was deeply unsettling. The recordings painted a very different picture than the one Amanda had given. The footage showed Amanda in the kitchen the night Greg died, calm and composed, placing something into his drink. She didn't appear distressed when Greg began to lose control of his body. In fact, she stood silently, watching. She made no move to help him. The most damning moment came after Greg collapsed. Amanda stared at his motionless body for over a minute before calmly cleaning up the area, disposing of the cup and wiping the counter with deliberate care. Further footage showed Amanda earlier that day retrieving a small package from her car, removing a foil-wrapped pouch and hiding it in the kitchen drawer. Audio snippets, captured from a hallway mic, revealed her rehearsing what she would say on the phone. Her performance during the 911 call had been rehearsed not grief, but theater. Investigators quickly subpoenaed Amanda's online purchases, her browsing history, and her gym's delivery records. What they found matched the timeline of events perfectly. She had ordered small amounts of plant-based toxins, read numerous articles on poisoning techniques, and even watched videos on how to mimic symptoms of heart failure. Every digital step she took she thought was erased, but it wasn't. Armed with irrefutable evidence, the police obtained a warrant for Amanda's arrest. They waited until she returned from the insurance office, where she had been finalizing paperwork, was wearing a sleek black coat, holding a fresh coffee, and smiling as she pulled into her driveway. Detectives approached, informed her of the arrest, and began reading her rights. Amanda's face shifted from confusion to panic when they mentioned the footage. In that moment, it became clear she hadn't known. She had never suspected that Greg had been watching. That the house she lived in, the one she believed she controlled, had quietly recorded her every betrayal. Everything she had done to cover her tracks, every cold, calculated move, had been saved, forever etched into a digital archive she never knew existed. Her perfect crime had been undone by her own blindness. Amanda's arrest sent shockwaves through Franklin Heights. Word spread quickly that the grieving widow was not a victim, but a suspect in her husband's death. The once sympathetic community watched in disbelief as police escorted Amanda out of her home in handcuffs. For days, news vans lined the street and headlines captured the fall of the woman who had fooled them all. At the police station, Amanda refused to speak without a lawyer. Her confident demeanor cracked as she realized how much evidence had been gathered against her. Investigators laid everything out in front of her legal team: the surveillance footage, the audio recordings, the search history, the delivery receipts. There was no single smoking gun. It was the accumulation of everything, the invisible web of proof Greg had left behind. Toxicology results confirmed what the footage suggested. Greg had been poisoned with digitalis, a deadly compound that causes heart failure in high doses. The autopsy, once considered routine, was re-examined with this new information. Traces of the compound were present in his system, aligning with the timeline captured by the security footage. The evidence left no room for doubt. Amanda was officially charged with first-degree murder and attempted insurance fraud. The prosecution wasted no time in preparing a case, built almost entirely on the digital breadcrumbs she had unknowingly scattered. They made it clear that her intent was not only premeditated but methodical. She had researched, planned, and executed a murder believing she had covered every trace. The trial began 3 months later and gripped the public. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was electric. Greg's family sat in the front row, silent and composed, while Amanda entered in handcuffs, her once confident walk replaced by a rigid mechanical shuffle. She barely looked up as prosecutors played the footage for the jury. The jury watched in silence. Clip after clip showed Amanda's actions, each one more damning than the last. The moment she poured the powder into the drink, the cold stare as Greg collapsed. The practiced panic in her voice during the emergency call. The courtroom remained still, many stunned by the clarity of the evidence. There were no witnesses needed. Greg himself, through his foresight, had left behind the ultimate witness, the truth. Amanda's defense team tried to claim the footage was taken out of context. They argued emotional distress, claimed she was in shock, and attempted to suggest Greg had been suicidal. But the jury wasn't swayed. It took them just 6 hours to deliver a unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. Amanda Winters was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She was led away. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply stared ahead, expressionless, as if finally understanding the full weight of what she had done. Greg had once been a quiet man, cautious and thoughtful. In the end, it was his quiet caution that saved the truth. He couldn't stop what Amanda planned, but he made sure the world would see it. In trying to erase him, she had only exposed herself. Everything she thought was hidden had been recorded. And that changed everything.